He has spent 9 years of his childhood doing theaters, got a degree in management, and joined a very prestigious Whistling Food Institute to pursue his further studies in filmmaking. Abhishek has a unique distinction of working with some of the top-notch filmmakers of Bollywood. He was assistant director to Subhash Ghai for the film Yuvraj and Black and White. Later, he was associate director with Sanjay Leela Bansali films for the movie Gujarish and Chenab Gandhi. He has also assisted Ram Madhwani, who has been the director for highly acclaimed movie called Nirja for advertising campaigns too. At one point, he realized his dreams to revive the film industry in Gujarat and left a secured profile in the mainstream film industry to devote his talent for the regional cinema. It is said that there were movies before Abhishek came into making film like Kevi Tejesh, and there are movies after that. So I can say that he was a trendsetter. He has been a trendsetter in Gujarati movies. Abhishek conviction has already created a benchmark in Gujarati film industry. With his path-breaking debut feature film Kevi Tejesh, we settled a milestone as a revival of Gujarati film industry and ran in cinema for 112 days. His second feature film, Bayar, which you might have all seen, went up to become the widest release Gujarati film with a theatrical release in more than 14 countries and a domestic run in cinemas for 52 weeks. His latest feature film, which was the last one in Gujarati movie, Wrong Side Raju raised the standards and proved to be the first Gujarati film to have a national collaboration with Phantom Film, headed by acclaimed filmmaker Anurag Kashyap. In the year 2017, Cinnamon received the National Award for the Best Feature Film in Gujarati language, and it deserves a big round of applause, right? Yeah. After successfully paving path into Gujarati regional film industry, his company Cinnamon has also now got into film production deal with Maddock Films for making Hindi feature length film. Abhishek has completed the shoot, and you might have already seen the movie, which is called Hum Do Hamare Do, which is starring Rajkumar Rao, Kirti Sanon, Paresh Rawal, Ratna Patak, and Apar Shakti Khurana. Keeping an advent of newfound base for OTT platform, Abhishek has recently launched his latest venture, Oho Gujarati, which is Gujarat's first premium content streaming platform catering to Gujarati audience globally. Abhishek has also penned down his biographical book called Aato Just Watch It, which is a very interesting book. You guys should have a hold on that. Today, his production house, Cinnamon, is fully functioning film production house, engaged in activities ranging right from the script to screen, film production, film distribution, and filmmaking, along with advertisement films, OTT platforms, and this makes Cinnamon one of the finest film production houses in the industry. Working with him in few projects, in recent past, my experience is that give him a work and forget about it. He absolutely knows what is his job and he can take care of it. So welcome Abhishek to this forum. Yeah, Abhishek, we are all yours here now.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an elaborate introduction. But I think we know each other since the time I was in my management school, and we used to participate in AdMed shows and do some creative stuff there. And since then, I have been seeking your guidance, and it has been a grateful journey. We are here to celebrate the work of Rajeev. And Rajeev, I think whenever we talk about films, the first thing that we all know about a film is its iconic poster or visual design. That's how people remember a film, because before the film comes out, there is so much of communication that is done so that people can get excited about the film and people could know more about the film. So that amount of responsibility of creating immense curiosity and engagement and excitement amongst the audiences is actually not technically a film director or film producer's job, but it comes to the visual designer's job, and that is the most crucial job. If that falls flat, the film, however good, could probably also get bombed. So that's where Rajeev comes in place, right when you have to do your first communication. And this was not the same scenario. The amount of respect now this profession and this fraternity gets was not not earlier like that. And I think with Marching Ants coming into the picture, it has brought a lot of credibility, a lot of respect for this profession, and a lot of credit goes to Rajeev for this. Rajeev graduated from the Baroda Fine Arts, and he started his career as a visualizer in Publicis. He then moved to become the creative head of contesttowin.com, and then finally he became the creative head of mtvindia.com, and then co-founded Marching Ants. And he has got immense experience when it comes to the visual design. And I think he is the man who has pioneered and who's changed the entire perspective. They have changed the entire visual landscape of Indian film industry. Today, people give so much of importance, the producers specifically, give so much of importance to the visual design of the film, is because if that doesn't work, the film probably has a probability of tanking. So Rajeev comes into picture. I think what I remember about Indian film posters, the most iconic that I could remember is Mother India, which I think I also has a big size. I have a big size poster of that film in my office, because that's such an iconic poster. It was made way back, and we all, once I say Mother India, probably you won't remember a scene of that film, but you would probably remember that poster. And this is where it all started, the journey of visual designing. And post that, there was, I think, not enough creative work done. And then I think in 2001, when Marching Ants came into the fraternity, brought a fresh air and a lot of creativity. So Rajeev, I think a lot we have to talk to you about. My first, I mean, if I have to start and begin with question, my first question, which is also a personal question, is that this wouldn't have been an easy journey, Rajeev, because I know on the other side, when there are producers, they would probably spend a lot on an actor's tantrum, they would spend a lot on an action sequence or a location. But when it came to visual design, they always used to detest, and they're, "Acha, isme kya karna hai?" How did you really crack that? How did you really convince these people? Obviously, your work speaks a lot, but then that initial meeting and putting across your foot down and telling that this is how I creatively visualize this. This is also adhering to the script. So I want to know more about that journey, and please throw some light. How is this entire pipeline? How does this all work? Whether you get attached to the film right from the beginning stage, like the scripting stage, or you come in the picture after the film has been shot. Do you watch the film and then decide? What is it all about?
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Sanjay, for having me on board. I would very gladly take you through the journey. But initially, as you rightly said, it was extremely difficult because at that time in 2001, it was a very, very haphazard, non there was no respect for this part of the business. It was more of a recall that the makers needed, saying that, okay, this is the film, and we need to just remind audiences that this film has these actors, and that's about it. They used to do faces of these actors and just put the logo. But my reason for coming into it was simply that advertising was becoming little more, it didn't allow too much of creativity. I'm saying this I felt 20 years back. But my reason was to do some good work. So thankfully, my first film, I went and met Ramu. It wasn't an easy task to get to meet with Ram Gopal Verma. Somehow, Maria Goretti, with my MTV experience, she was the VJ there. So she helped me with Arshad, her husband. I got to meet Ram Gopal Verma, and my first film brief came there, which was Ek Hasina Thi. And what happened was that Ek Hasina Thi, the first campaign, I kind of broke all do's and don'ts, or the cliches of how film posters are supposed to be done, or how they are meant to look. And when that came out, my phone didn't stop ringing. My phone just didn't stop ringing. I started getting calls from people. But honestly speaking, the struggle of the journey happened and started mainly after my first film, because I had to start from scratch. I had to educate the people, educate the filmmakers of how to go about it, bring some kind of a method to the madness. There was no client servicing departments at that time for film publicity. So all that was introduced by marching ants. There was we started presenting the campaign with mock-up creatives 20 years back. They were not used to be, presented the campaigns like that. And then once they approved, we would get into a shoot and then execute that. So yes, that's where how the journey started. And answering your other questions, Abhishek, I think you asked, you wanted to know if how do we start the work, right?
Yeah. And I will also add to that question that sometimes, I mean, when you start the work and you mentioned about mock-up creatives and you also present it to the producers or the client in your case, there must be this Indian tendency, or dikhao. And I know your work, and then you put your foot down very firmly that this is what the film speaks. How do you tackle with that? Because there is so much of ego clashing that is happening in that room. How do you really deal with that? So right from the beginning of the process till this point, if you can just throw some light.
Okay, to answer that, yeah, I'll tell you an anecdote which happened a few years back. So Anand Rai is a very good friend of mine. So Anand Rai once called me and said, "Rajiv, क्या कर रहे हो?" तो I said, "Sir, office में हूँ." तो बोलता है, "मैं आ जाऊँ, coffee पिलाओगे?" I said, "Please, sir, definitely." So he came over. There was no work on hand, or there was no agenda. He just came and said, and we were talking generally. Between the conversation, he stops me and says, "Rajiv, पता है आपकी impression क्या है industry में?" So my immediate reaction is, "No, sir, I don't know." And then we continue the conversation. And about 10 minutes later, the curiosity got the better of me. And I said, "Sir, what were you telling? What were you saying? Just tell me what's the impression, what happened?" So he's saying, last night I was sitting with a few of my director, producer friends. And all of us at some point have worked with you or are currently working with you. And we started talking about you. And all of us felt and believed that राजीव को उसके डिजाइन्स को क्वेश्चन करना या रिजेक्ट करना, it's a scary thought. Okay, it's saying that we are scared to tell you, can you show us more, or this is not working. So so I started, and we both started laughing. I said, "Sir, I think over these years I have earned it. I so many times. So when we present campaigns for a film, there'll be at least two routes that we would present, that route A or B. And if I feel a route B works better for the film, though route A is 1/4 the effort and time for me. But if the route B is more beneficial for the film, I will not let the filmmakers buy the route A. I mean, I will not look at it that, oh, it's so easy for me. It'll be quick in and out for me. I'll be able to, do more work and make more money. No, I will fight till the cows come home with the filmmakers and make sure that they buy. So when your intent is correct, when all you want is the film to succeed, when you work like that, then really, you're not really bothered or scared of you hurting somebody, because your intentions are clear and right for the film. There are lots of times where, I'll give you another example with Anandra itself. He was briefing me on Ranjana. So he was narrating me the entire story, and this was before he went on floors shooting the film. He was briefing me, and in the second half of the film, he mentioned a scene where Sonam and Dhanush were at the railway station, and he thought she's going to come to meet him, and she passes him and doesn't meet him. And earlier in the narration, he had mentioned about a holy scene where the playing with colors. So I stopped him there. I got up and I enacted the poster that which has become iconic, where Dhanush is standing with his back towards the camera. Sonam is running, and there's a burst of colors around it. I don't know whether you remember that, Abhishek, or anybody from the audience, where he had colors in his hands, and she was running towards him, and he thought she's coming towards him, and he'll paint her, and she passes him. He opens his fist, and the colors fall out, and that's the poster. That was the poster which showed people how to do multiple colors in one creative and still look classy. And from there, all your surfs and all the washing powder commercials who wanted to do colors took inspiration from that poster. And suddenly, a year later, every second creative of advertising campaign which had colors and wanted to see how clean they started using that style. So it's these kind of things, when that happen, is when you know that you're doing something right. Abhishek, I must also tell you that nowadays, in the last, I would say 5-7 years at least, we go for a film briefing, and the studio, so the conference rooms are full of the marketing heads and the producers and the director, and so like about 10-12 people, and then 2-3 people with me from my side. And they are after the briefing of the film, they start showing us the direction in where they want to pitch the film, and they would show posters that has been done before. So if they show us about 8-10 posters of films, so about 3-4 films would be international films, and then 5-6 films would be Indian films. So out of those 6 films, 4 would be our film only. So they would show us our own posters and say the film should look like this. I have become used to it, so I don't react. But my team can't sit quiet. They jump up and so that's our work, and I would just smile at them, because for them it's the sense of pride, where they say, oh, our work is being shown to us, and say, oh, this is the kind of stuff we want. So yeah, it's now like you rightly said, the respect, the control, and I would say to a certain extent the involvement that is required out of us for the film is quite high. So starting earlier, where it was just a commodity, people thought there's it's perishable commodity we were, where ye nahi theek hai, koi aur chalega. Now there are times where when a filmmaker goes to a studio, he has a few prerequisites, and one of them would be that my campaign would be done by marching ends. And if the studio has a problem with that, there are times where the deals have been terminated because the studio they had somebody else on board. Okay, so yes, it's a huge change, a lot of hard work. Initially, if the film didn't do well, then if I got 50% paid or 70% paid, the rest of the money it was very conveniently written off, because the film didn't do well, and they would say, oh sir, film chali nahi, hum kya kare, and we'll adjust in the next film. We functioned like that for about 5 years, I would say. 2000 till 2006 or so, we functioned like that, where we just barely covered our costs. But all we kept doing was kept churning out one great campaign after the other, and to name a few at that time was Paap, Karam, those kind of films where the newspapers and television shows also said that the posters are better than the film. That kind of stuff happened a lot. In fact, some of the people interviewed me around that time, in the early days of Marching Ends, that don't you think you're lying to the audiences by showing posters which are better than the film? And I said, well, I buy your point. I buy your point that posters are good. But now I'm asking you a question, okay? And you tell me what is your answer. And I said, if somebody comes to you for your services, gives you your price, okay, what will you do? Will you compliment the film? If the film is bad, would you make a mediocre campaign? Or you would do your job at your best ability and give what you can do the best? And all I got was a smile in return, and I understood that, okay, the person agrees with what I have to say.
No, so this also brings me to this point that how important is for you to objectively look at the content, because you are part of the film. You are part, as you mentioned, sometimes probably people like Anand Rai would also involve you right from the scripting stage. Some might just bring to you, like you mentioned, in the conference room when the film is done with, they might probably show you one of the two snippets of the film or might not. But how involved do you get with the script? And if you do, then how do you look at it objectively? This is not the way I must look at the film, because that's very critical. Like I remember the iconicity that Dave D posters brought in. Look, they were like speaking about our generation. This is the kind of poster in the film that I would want to go and watch before even the trailer came out. So how do you objectively look at the work, and then how do you pitch your content there, and fight it out creatively?
So I must tell you, let me tell you a couple of instances where I have been briefed by filmmakers and how I translate that to a creative brief for myself and my team. So when Anurag briefed me on Dev D, he first gave me examples of Andy Warhol's work. Okay, so he showed me Andy Warhol about 8 pieces of art. He said, Rajiv, I like this space. I said, okay. Then he says, what would you think, or how would you think if you were high? So I said, high on what? So he said, high on stuff, high on substance. So because if he's talking about high on alcohol or high on substance, so I said, okay, Anurag, you high on substance, you'll see something else, and me high on substance, I'll see something else. So to me, but I understand what you're trying to say is that you don't want to see the stuff that you would see when you are sane. You want to see stuff which kind of is psychedelic. You want to see stuff which is breaking the norm. Creativity is really pushed, and that's it. That's the brief I took, and I went back to the drawing board, and I started working with the team. The team also were experimenting. They didn't know how to go about a brief like that. Okay, but then of course it was a process. We worked on it, and there were times where my team did a poster. So when I passed a machine and I saw somebody working on it, which was in my head, we were there with the poster. Half an hour or 20 minutes later, when I come pass again, that person had gone beyond that and had undone the stuff that he had done. I sat with him and I made him go undo about 100 times. Okay, I sat there and I said, please keep doing undo till I ask you to stop. And after a point, when he came back to what I saw, I said, this is the poster, now let's work on this. Okay, so that's one. Now I'll tell you about another very, very funny and interesting way. So Abbas Bhai and Mastan Bhai, their film Players. The film was being done by Viacom 18. And they were Abbas Bhai's, and they were shooting in Film City. So we were called on the set, and then we all sat in the vanity van, and they came between the shoot. There were about 8-10 of us in the vanity van. They came. They didn't even sit down. They were standing. And Viacom marketing head goes, sir, Marching Ants is here. Please brief them. Guess what brief was given to me? So Abbas Bhai goes, Rajiv, ऐसा पोस्टर बनाओ कि लोग देख के बोले, वाह, ये पिक्चर देखनी है. ये बोल के both of them left. That was the brief. They did not say anything else. And we are looking at each other. They are extremely simple people. But a brief like this, and you have to convert it into a campaign. Can you believe that? Okay, and yes. So I looked at Viacom. I said, so do you want to add anything more to this, or I run with this brief? Okay, and they said, no, Rajiv, we'll talk a little bit. So of course they had to do their bit, and they did brief me a little bit. But yeah, these kind of briefs we get, and we have to translate it at our end. And I think over the years we know what one filmmaker wants or what the film requires. I think that now becomes a part of you, a habit that you see from a trend over the years.
Rajiv, there is an interesting question in the chat box, which also brings me to another aspect of your business. Obviously, you brought respect and credibility. You also have great relation with producers and directors, and you adhere to their creative briefs also. You also bring in and chip in your creativity. But sometimes there are moments and issues which would raise issues like copying, plagiarizing, and in such scenarios, how are you safeguarding yourself as marching ants? And also, does this fraternity of publicity design has something which would safeguard each other? How do you get into a plagiarizing case, and how do you fight for it? Like writers have. If a writer's work is copied, there is a screenwriters association. They can complain about it. There could be an issue raised, and then whatever court or judicial procedure could follow. Is there some body like this? Is there an association like this? How does this work?
No, nothing. There are no bodies. There's nothing to safeguard us or on our creative intellectual properties. There's nothing. But yes, you do get trolled by press and social media if there is a similarity. In the past, the producers would give us a reference of a poster and say, "I want exactly this." And because we were new, we've made those mistakes ourselves where we've done it, and the backlash is so bad that we have now, it's a mandate within the creative team as well as with the clients, that I'm ready to walk away from a film if you're asked me to copy something. And the team also knows that if I find them picking or copying a poster, they could lose their jobs. Okay, but saying that, our social media, our press are so on trying to be right and correct and everything, but and they don't miss an opportunity. Like there are times where it's not a copy. You cannot penalize a creative process or a poster when the similarities of people walking or a woman sleeping. Okay, that's so generic. There always will be some similarity in pose or lighting, but that doesn't mean you copied. Okay, so they are ruthless when it comes to this. Then my question to such people is that, yes, okay, you do your job, but then do your job all rounded. Okay, our first poster, Ek Hasina Thi, if you see, and 5 years later, there's a film called Memoirs of Geisha from Hollywood. Please put those posters next to each other and you'll see similarity. Okay, there is this a film we did, Go Goa Gone, about 8 years back or 7 years back. There came a B-grade Hollywood film. They copied Go Goa Gone poster to the T, that you could play the game, spot the difference. Nobody wrote about that, right? So there are instances where our work has been copied and it goes unnoticed. And I must tell you, I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but because we are in touch with our peers in Hollywood, the guys who do Marvel and DC film posters, they are friends. We talk to them. All of them know about marching ants. They all follow our work as we follow their work. So it's not that, oh, it's a coincidence. It was a very planned and designed effort of taking a Go Goa Gone poster and copying it to the T. So those guys are also doing it. I mean, everybody has done it in their lives once. But my point being that, yes, it should be then, give the due credit. If you are ruthlessly penalizing people, then give due credit where it's due.
Rajiv, you have also interacted over the years with a lot of actors, stars, and when it comes to publicity design, there is another set altogether where they have come here for photographs. What is the kind of brief that you give? Because as a director, as a filmmaker, I can give brief about my scene, my script. How do you go about that? क्योंकि उन्हें तो वहाँ pose करना है. तो आप क्या brief देते हैं? Do you instill the brief from the film's character, or you instill your own brief? How has it been working with these stars, especially with Irfan Khan? Because You have worked with him, and I remember Madari's poster. Is it Talwar's poster? Amazing posters, and that man, his eyes speak so much. It complements your visual design so much. What is the brief like to these stars?
I had the, I've been fortunate to have worked with Irfan Sab on quite a few films. I'll tell you something. All the good actors hate photo shoots. Okay, they cringe and whine and cry when they have to come in front of a still camera. But the good part is that because they are brilliant actors, so normally for one poster we take around, for one poster we take about 200 pictures. Okay, with these actors you are done in 15 to 20 pictures. Okay, I remember my first ever shoot with Ajay Devgan. So the photographer was Ajay's friend and my friend as well. So we were shooting, and after the 7th picture, I told the photographer, I've got my shot. Ajay couldn't believe it, nor the photographer, because people love to play safe. I said, I've got my shot. And they stood there for about a few seconds. I said, sure. I said, yeah. My entire campaign I wrapped up in about under 70 pictures. Okay, so yes, if you have a good talent in front of you, life becomes extremely easy. Then there are another breed which are extremely vain, where they themselves want to shoot because they love looking at themselves on the monitors. Okay, so for them, 200-300 pictures per poster is no big deal. So by the end of the full campaign, we have about 4,000 or 5,000 pictures. Okay, so it all depends on who we are working with. But yes, coming back to your question, what we do is we 100% imbibe the character, how a character would react in a scenario, or how they would react to a particular expression, how they would portray. Keeping that in mind, what a poster needs is what we ask from them. Sometimes, and also what, Abhishek, I must tell you, over the years, we've also learned that you don't need to be too loud with your expressions in posters, because then it starts looking caricaturish. And it's a very fine line. You need to get the right expression without going overboard or underplaying it. So yes, that's, if I have I answered your question, or is something I've missed?
No. I think you pretty much answered the question. There is an interesting question that has come in the chat box, that you have given us an example of an inadequate brief, right? Which is, I won't say inadequate, but which is like random brief, or just how they are also. But can you give us an example of a good brief? What is a good brief for you? What is a good brief for marching ant in that room? And you step out of that room and say, yeah, perfect, this is a great brief. What is it like?
So for us, a good brief is a detailed narration
of
the film.
Of the film. Okay, great.
Okay.
And the characters, or just the film?
My starting point is a complete detailed narration. I would prefer a narration even if the film is ready. And my reason for that is, I am for a perfect bridge between the audience and the film. Okay, I need to do justice to the movie, as well as I need to excite the audiences. Now, if I'm in the center, the minute I watch the film, I go and sit next to I start skewing towards the film, the filmmaker, and I tend to go away from audiences, right? So a narration is something which is very neutral, in my opinion, where I dissect the film, pull out my dough from there, and build a campaign from there, where I never ever lose my focus from the audience. So after the detailed narration, I would, or before the narration, when whatever the flow doesn't really matter, but I then need a detailed breakdown of the characters. And lastly, I need to know from the makers of what emotion and what genre do they want to pitch the film. Okay, yes, I would hear them out, not necessarily I would agree or take that as is, because then if I don't agree with them, I question the brief. It's a very healthy long conversation at times, where they ask for something like, see, filmmakers, especially the directors, are very close to the film. Okay, and they want a particular way of, and which is not, I would not recommend the director to get too involved, for the simple reason. Abhishek, I'll give you an example for that. For a filmmaker, your most important scene is the scene which you worked the most on. Okay, if you shot a film in a storm, where the conditions were really against you, okay, it was next to impossible for you to shoot that scene. For the maker, that scene becomes one of the most important scenes in the film, because the hardships he's gone through to shoot that. But not necessarily that scene has anything to do with marketing the film. Okay, so those kind of learnings and understanding, it's something we come across only through conversations with the maker, and telling them that, okay, yes, I understand where your loyalties and your heart is, but it's not going to help the film on the high, in a longer run. So yes, uh, there are a lot of times where uh, the makers would want to have inputs after we present the campaign. Suddenly they start getting ideas. Okay, why can't we do this, and why can't we do it? It's so easy to have an opinion after you see some work. I think that's the easiest thing on earth to do when you have some stuff, some tangible stuff in front of you. Okay, and that's the time where I don't really appreciate the inputs, or inputs are fine, but questioning it. Okay, the holistic concerns of why can't we do that? You understand where I'm coming from?
Actually, from the day one when you started thinking about the film as a filmmaker, you have a certain image in your mind that is your inspiration that you follow through the making.
That I ask every filmmaker.
Yeah.
That, okay, on the day of the brief, I asked them, I said, do you have an imagery in mind? How do you see the film? And for me, it's only important, or it's necessary to ask and see that, for me to understand the space that they are seeing the film in. Okay, it just helps me in some subconscious way to go on a particular path. If that is, if I also believe and am in agreement with the imagery that I'm shown.
Yeah, I mean, because half of the times, I mean, personally speaking, I always have this in the back of my mind के अरे ये नहीं समझेगा यार, फिल्म को पूरा नहीं समझ पाएगा, ये कुछ भी करेगा ये फिल्म को नहीं समझ पाएगा. So there is this sweet bitter animosity कि यार ये कुछ भी करने वाला है फिल्म के साथ में, this is not what my film is. And then eventually when you see the final version of it, and when especially it's validated by the audiences, when the audiences see it and perceive the film the way you wanted as a filmmaker to perceive, I feel that अच्छा हाँ ये समझ गया तो अभी हाँ मतलब अब ऑडियंस भी समझ गई है. So that's a very, I think you deal with this sweet bitter relationship with filmmakers because they are so possessed with their work and their imagery, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an interesting question. Neeraj Shah has asked again. He was the publicity designer and the visual designer for our film Beya, and he created some iconic posters for us too. So he has a question that it would be great to understand the planning of a campaign as a strategy versus a poster design as just a visual, so or a visual communication.
So see what's if I tell you about the journey there, when we started, it was just poster designs. We were not asked to strategize how to pitch the film to the audiences. It was just one piece of creative which was used on walls and hoardings. But as time passed, in the last 3.5, 4 years, we have started doing the entire 360-degree campaigns for films. And we've, in the last 3 years, we've won 2 Cannes Awards for the best campaign for films. And our first film was Uri, where we strategized and designed every piece of communication that you see. That meant, I don't know if Mr. Sanjay, right, who asked me the question?
Neeraj.
Neeraj. So if Neeraj has also seen we made these small videos where it was about torrent download. Then there were these about 5 to 6 20-30 seconders. We did the entire trailers for the film, all the posters. So Uri was a classic case study for the industry, where what we decided, the whole idea there was that we should, the image we have of Indian Army is sluggish, ill-fitted clothes. We always used to look up at the American armies or international armies, where the fit, very soft, highly, very modern equipments and technology they used to have, versus Indians where we lacked all of that. So here we reposition the Indian Army. Okay, we introduced Indian Army as really cool, modern, today's individuals and as a team. And if you now see the whole campaign, it was executed as that, because there was Vicky Kaushal was not a star that he is today before Uri. The director was the first time filmmaker. So we had to look for a catch from what we had, and we thought also that was also one of the points for the film as well. I mean, I would not take anything away from the film, and we just went all out on that one thing of, in theaters you went and you had a 6-foot cutout of Vicky Kaushal's army getup, and people were taking pictures with it. So yes, what we do is we present a complete, it's an exhaustive docket to the client, where from positioning to and post positioning, how each vertical and division is going to produce creatives to support the positioning. And we do social media, digital marketing, trailers and posters, everything. And that's and we won Cannes for Uri more on digital and social media of innovation there.
And how much do you rely on the film stills versus getting a photo shoot done? Because there is always this conflict. अरे एक photo shoot करना है तो उसका एक अलग budget है, उसका एक अलग दिन है, actor के पास date नहीं है, film के stills में से ही ले लो. How much do you get convinced? Do you really get into that conversation, or you just detest it?
So if you pick up any marching ants work and you like, would be 90% would be a photo shoot. There are very few films where we've done a campaign from working stills and they've become iconic. And for the simple reason that they were not shot keeping in mind the marketing and publicity or posters. They are done for other reasons. Okay, so if you want to get the most out of marching ants, then I would recommend that, let's do a shoot, because that's when you'll get posters which people will talk about and will be given to us as references to copy for the future work. But and also you tend to get far more creative. Okay, if I have the liberty to shoot, because from lighting to looks to the madness, all of it is possible. With working stills, it's extremely constrictive, because it's very it kind of holds you down, because you first need to find the right picture, usable picture, which is sharp. The expressions are should be fine. The actor should look good. There are too many concerns, yes, that you need to first address before you actually get down to executing or working on them.
Correct. Rikin Shah, again, he also is a creative person, runs an agency here in Ahmedabad, has a question that with the OTTs coming in and the influx of so much content every day that we are seeing, what is the kind of change that you are observing in publicity design? Film versus OTT, or OTT also per se as an industry? What is it like in today's time? It's a very relevant question.
So right now, 80% of our work is OTT. Because of the pandemic and the lockdowns, the OTT is flourishing. So Sony Live, 100% of Sony Live we do. 100% of Applause we do. We do a lot of shows for Amazon, quite a few for Netflix and Hotstar.
So also the dynamics of the creative, is to be taken into consideration, because OTT is something which is to be consumed on a smaller screen or your mobile screens. And also the communication is mostly on digital platforms. So what is the kind of dimension that you're looking at, or you treat it like a feature film only?
No, it changes from OTT to OTT. The approaches are different on each platform. For example, Hotstar still prefers their campaigns to be far more simpler, close-ups of faces, and do little bit stuff around it, and they are happy. Sony Live is very open to creative renditions, more creative the better. Netflix, on the other hand, are the most evolved. Okay, and the grungier, the more experimental you are, the happier they would be. Amazon is it's a mix of all. They take really hardcore experimental and unique stuff to some really simple stuff. So it changes from also the genre of the show or the movie that you're working on determines your approach on each of them. But yes, mostly. But yes, one thing's for sure: you are sitting amongst a lot of international shows and films. So you need to stand out between that and not come across as a desi indie show. You need to be competing with international content. So you need to have a certain kind of class and finesse to be able to stand on your own and still shout out that I'm here.
Yeah. You mentioned about the lockdown, and must have been, we all have gone through these difficult times, especially for creative people working from home. Sometimes it's a very intimate process of working together and creating something. How did you manage to motivate your team? How did you manage to manage your business and all of it? What was it like? Because these times have been very tough and difficult, especially for creative people. Sitting at home, probably you cannot get inspired to work on anything. So what was it like? Were there daily meetings? Were you guys meeting online? What was it like?
You are so right. It's not called the years of resignation for no reason, right? The last two, it's termed as that, where everybody felt that they are being ignored. There's nobody to look after them. They see themselves with in those muffled soundproof rooms where they've been stranded. And I've been getting calls from my team on such things and asking me. So there were no concrete ways to handle it. We were also learning of how to go about with these concerns and problems. And after a few months, we realized that it made more sense to have one video call with the entire team every second day, where don't talk about work, just talk general, where you're talking about life and what they are up to, what other things besides work that they should adapt to keep themselves busy and occupied creatively. So these were the more kind of conversations one had initially for the first year, I would say. Post that, some of them did come back on track. Some of them completely got derailed, and I've told them, I've told my entire team that, you could pick up your phone on me anytime you wish. You need to speak about anything. So it's been extremely challenging, and the challenge is still not over. I had a similar call. Last call was day before yesterday, last at 11 in the night till 12:30 for an hour and a half. Okay, so I'm still, I think the people's mental health has been the biggest concern, more than anything else. Work to me is still secondary, because if you're healthy up there, then work will happen. But keeping them healthy and motivated and just generally happy has been the biggest task. But I think we've done quite well. We have retained and come out of it quite okay, I would say, retaining most of my team. There are not too many casualties.
All right. So there is this question by Dr. Shashikant Bhagat. Is digital media has eased the film production techniques, film promotion techniques, sorry, or made difficult to reach out the target if we compare to existing mainstream media? This is always a question in debate, whether digital media is, for film promotions especially, has been proved effective, or is the traditional orthodox medium of probably a poster on the wall of a street or a full page advertisement in a print. What is it like? How is the world changing, and what is the ratio now, and how is the world responding to this ratio change?
I think digital marketing is targeted mainly to the millennials. So if your target audience is millennial, then you're sorted. But if your target audience is goes beyond 35, 40, then there is a problem, because they don't live on social media the way the youngsters are. They live there. So, but now again, the posters on the wall and the hoardings are almost obsolete now. People are not doing that. So it's extremely difficult to target. But then, because we are the youngest country in the world, your biggest audience chunk is youngsters. So that way you're sorted. But I personally do miss the classic medium of a hoarding and a wall, because it's so satisfying. It's so great. You see a huge billboard outside on the streets of Mumbai or anywhere else. It's you feel good. So, but yes, and I think we're talking to a lot of filmmakers and asking them, talking to them, that I think we are on a few strategic points. We should start having billboards. Even actors love it. They love themselves looking at them on the billboards.
Yes, it's true. I mean, driving on the Western Express Highway and watching those big hoardings of your content of your film is quite satisfying feeling. Okay, one, I think from my end, and also I think there is a question that addressed it. If there is any controversy that is attached to your work, the film per se wouldn't have that controversy in this case. But if your work has a controversy attached to it, if there is a symbolic representation of a particular community, caste, creed, religion, whatever, and if that erupts a certain amount of conversation, or I may say blatantly erupts a controversy, in that case, how do you, what is the amount of responsibility that you take, and how do you respond back to that? I'm sure this also attaches an extra question is, how do you really tackle these trolls also?
So thankfully, we've not faced this. See, religion-wise, or whether it's the national integrity, whether it's the flag or any of those emblems or symbols, we have stayed away, stayed clear of that from beginning. Maybe aesthetically, that those things didn't excite me, that we stayed away. But it's thankfully, whatever the reasons be, has worked, and we've never been pulled up for any of such instances. But in case we do, and if there is a genuine overlook from our part, we would rectify it and come out clean and apologize for doing that unintentionally. And of course, the makers, the producers will always back you, because it's finally work that's been done for them and approved by them. So their support also would be there. And as long as you recognize the sentiments that's been hurt and change them, then I don't see it kind of really giving you a lot more backlashes than that.
Yeah. Sanjay sir, you want to add on to any questions?
So, Rajiv, I should tell that आप जो भी बात करते हैं दिल से करते हैं, और आपने हमारे दिल की भी बात बहुत कुछ बोल दी, because I feel that the entire creative industry is facing the same problems, same challenges, and has the same opportunity, which is wonderful. Rajiv जब भी मैंने बात करी तो I always felt, because he's very passionate about his work, right? So when I was discussing with Rajiv, he narrated few of the interesting part which I would like, क्योंकि काफी youngsters यहाँ पे हैं, तो राजीव आई वुड लाइक कि वो जो स्टिल दादा वाला स्टोरी जो बता रहे थे मुझे कि पुराने टाइम में स्टिल दादा हुआ करते थे, वो यूज्ड टू टेक द फोटोग्राफ्स, कैन यू जस्ट टेल देम द स्टोरी सो दैट दे अंडरस्टैंड हाउ हार्ड इट इज टू मेक अ पोस्टर?
Sanjay, which one was that? Can you please?
Last earlier times you used to have a guy who used to just click photographs of the shot so that he can continuity ho next day pe. And that was one thing which I felt very good. And second was that when clients tell you कि यार जल्दी करना, 2 दिन में करके दे दो, तो which is a usual thing which you will feel it in any creative field. कोई भी client को बोलेगा कि जल्दी कर दो, मतलब, so how do you answer that? How do you react to that? These are two interesting things I'd like you to share it to the audience sitting here.
So, Sanjay, earlier they used to ask, they didn't want to spend money at all. So when photo shoots used to happen, they would say, "Oh, hamara still dada hai, why don't you shoot with them?" So I said, "What have they shot?" And they would say, "Oh, wo hamare sare continuity stills wahi karte hain." And I said, he is not equipped, nor does he know. He shoots that so that you get continuity for the film when there were no video assists. That yesterday you shot this, you know that the glass was half full, the actor had a bruise here. That guy is not equipped to do a campaign shoot. All this education we used to do all these years. And Sanjay, is this the
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
you need to choose the pictures which are available to you, and
we would be given muddy pictures which there's no light on the actors, and say, sir, we have some great stills, why don't you make campaigns out of it? And you look at it and there's nothing you could do, and still you have to convince the makers that you need a photo shoot.
Over to you, Abhishek.
All right, I think I have almost had all my questions answered here. If there is anything that I am missing out, Rajiv, and you want to add it, you can please go ahead. And if in the audience anyone has any question, please drop into the chat box and we'll pose this question to Rajiv.
So, Rajiv, what is your message to the youngsters who want to make their career into this field?
So, I've been talking to a lot of young talent lately, and one thing that I see very commonly is that they all want to become celebrities without really working for it. They want to become brand names. They want to have the accolades of being a known, celebrated, creative person. But all of us, without grind, there is no success. You have to go through the grind. If you don't go through the grind now, then the later parts of your career, you'll have to go through the grind. I think during pandemic, I was talking to Sajid Nariyadwala. And I think that's the time when our first poster of Heropanti 2 was out. And he tells me, Rajiv, you are doing your best work of your career now. I said, Sajid bhai, after 20 years, you're saying that I'm doing my best work now. I said, so I can easily go on for another 20, you say. So yes, I think as long as you are ready to put in everything it takes, I think initial few years for every art person has to be, you have to be a sponge where you keep absorbing and learning. And once after that, you start executing what you've learned is the way to go. You start working with somebody that you respect. learn with that person, and then foray into your stuff that you want to do. Because a lot of youngsters want to straight away uh, start their own outfit without really getting their basics covered or cleared.
All right, sir. So there is, if you allow us, there is another question which is, I think, is very interesting, that Dipali Atre has asked, that is there any specific campaign that Rajeev has stumped you and like probably blown you? अरे ये तो मैंने नहीं किया यार, ये तो कमाल का काम हो गया, ये कैसे हो गया, ये चमत्कार हो गया.
Yeah, I feel humbled very often by some of the international campaigns, especially the Dark Knight. That campaign where there's this first poster that when the Dark Knight of the trilogy, the first part, where there's a shot of a low angle shot of buildings in the sky, and in the negative space of sky you see the Batman sign. That poster to me made me feel this small. It humbled me, and I thought I have still a long way to go. Okay, here sadly not too many Indian film posters make me feel that, or make me feel I wish I had done that. But internationally, a lot, I would say, a lot.
And any of your work that you look back now and you get surprised, Rajiv, ये कैसे कर दिया यार तूने? ये क्या चल रहा था?
I see a lot of my work, and I would think, how can I ever do such crap?
Oh.
I don't like to look at my work in the past, because I start finding faults. I start hating it. I would do it in completely differently right now, not go that route. So yes, barring a few campaigns, and I think that's the evolution, right? That if you are happy with what you've done, you'll never grow. You have to be hungry to outdo yourself, better yourself.
True.
Okay, and a lot of people ask me, why don't I have a tattoo on my body? I said, it's a design, right? I will start questioning that tattoo 6 months down the line, thinking that I can do much better than that. And it's on my body. I can't do anything about it. So that's how I think, and that's the reason why I've never had a tattoo.
Great. Yeah.
All right. Okay. There is another interesting question, sir. If you may allow us, please. Dr. Shashikant Bhagat has asked us a very interesting question, that with the advent of AI and augmented reality, AR, is there a possibility of in the near future itself of augmented reality coming into film promotions and publicity anytime soon? Or the world of metaverse and all of this?
100%. 100% will come in. Yes. In fact, we all are already meeting and talking to a lot of people of integrating how can we bring that in. But it's because it's a very focused audiences and marketing tool and idea. There are not too much of a support system for that kind of those kind of tools in India. So we need the infrastructure first to support any of that. Whether it's technology, whether it's the physical space. But yes, the work has begun. The meetings have started. People are already designing and talking about it. So very soon you start seeing radical changes in the way film publicity or OTT marketing is done.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Rajeev. It was pleasure talking to you, and thanks for such great insights. It also enlightens me personally a lot as filmmaker, because when we come on, we have you on board or a publicity designer on board, we never had this heart-to-heart conversation to understand that perspective. Thank you so much for opening my eyes. I'm sure the audience has also enjoyed this conversation. There were some relevant touch points about the career, about the way you deal with your creativity, about adhering to the brief. Thank you, Sanjay sir, for this opportunity. Thank you, the audience, for such relevant questions. And yes, Sanjay sir.
Yeah, thank you, Rajeev, for sparing your precious time on this Sunday, which is very difficult to spare. I thank you, Abhishek, for being there, and lovely audience who has been giving so much of nice responses on this Sunday. We got over 200 people attending this session, which is really, very motivating for us. And of course, the presentations like Rajiv's and Abhishek's contribution makes the Brand Fest take it to a different level, right? Thank you so much. And thank you, Paritosh Bhai. You have been there. He is another producer, director of the movies, contributed a lot in Gujarati movies and Hindi movies. Thank you for being there, Paritosh Bhai. Getting him is also a difficult task. So last but not the least, I would request all the audience to switch on their videos so that we can take a click and tomorrow you may see them on media, right? So please do that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.